Hey, thank you guys for coming back to the channel. I appreciate it immensely. Hope you're enjoying your time here. If you are, definitely don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell. Helps the channel a lot, and you'll always get notifications when I go live. You can also join the Discord. I will leave a link to that down in the description after this is made into a VOD, and I will also provide it in the chat in just a sec. Discord will also have notifications when I go live and direct access to me and any other shenanigans I get up to, and the meme channel, which is clearly the most important part of this. So, let's get started. Today, we're pretty much wrapping up 2.0, it looks like. Not too much left in it. We're right around just before Praetorium, so Castrum and Praetorium is right about the end of 2.0. And then there's next page where we start delving into the 2.x patches. So, Reclaiming the Dawn's Light. Alphino, Cid, and the adventurer sought refuge within the echoing halls of the Waking Sands, and there were reunited with the scions Ida and Shtola. The pair had spent the days since the raid on their headquarters attempting to locate their missing comrades, and their inquiries had at last borne fruit. Minfilia and the other high-ranking scions were being held prisoner in Castrum Sentry, an imperial stronghold in Mordona. Recognizing that it would be no small task to free them, the adventurer and his comrades set about gathering more intelligence, and in the process were reunited with Biggs and Wedge, two Garland Ironworks engineers who had been captured along with the other scions, but had managed to escape during transport. After regrouping in Mordona's Revenant's Toll, the engineers and the scions hatched a plan to infiltrate Castrum Sentry by impersonating Garlean soldiers. With the assistance of local adventurers, they obtained Imperial uniforms and a Magitech Reaper, and with them managed to enter the castrum undetected and free Minfilia, Papalymo, Urianger, and Tataru. Reunited, the Scions narrowly escaped the wrath of Livia Sas Junius by leaping aboard the Enterprise, but as they flew to safety, they spied Gaius von Balesar standing beside the Ultima weapon and the Asian La Habrea, who, to the Scions' dismay, threw back his hood to reveal the face of Thancred, their friend and ally, whom the Asian had been controlling for some time. I'll note that I feel like I've read this before and it's in another video, but I'm going to push through and just read an extra page or two in return. Operation Archon. Surrender to the Empire or share the fate of the false gods he had pledged to exterminate. Such was the ultimatum Gaius von Balesar had issued to the Alliance leaders, spurring them to convene an emergency meeting in Ul'dah. Though they balked at the Legatus' terms, they believed they had no choice, for the scions of the Seventh Dawn were gone, or so they had believed until Minfilia and the others strode to the fragrant chamber. In urgent tones, she and Alphino implored them not to surrender, to place their faith once more in the scions, and stand together against von Balesar and his Ultima weapon. Owing to this timely intervention, Eorzea's leaders resolved to fight the Empire to the last, and at once turned their attentions to the matter of how best to coordinate their military might. So it was that Operation Archon was conceived, the largest single counteroffensive in the realm's troubled history, in which the Alliance would strike at every Imperial stronghold standing upon Eorzean soil. The first phase of Operation Archon saw the Alliance eliminate one of the Black Wolf's most trusted lieutenants, Redatin Sas Arvina. Acting on intelligence that he would be visiting Cape Westwind for a routine inspection, the Immortal Flames launched an assault on the Imperial outpost. The adventurer then led a small unit into the innermost sector, and at the end of a fierce struggle dealt the Praefectus his death blow. With Redatin's demise, the forces garrisoned at Castrum Occidens were thrown into disarray, allowing the Alliance to commence the second phase of Operation Archon. The Maelstrom laid siege to the leaderless stronghold, and Admiral Merlwyb herself led the Crimson Fleet to blockade Castrum Marinum. Meanwhile, in the Twelfth Wood, the Order of the Twin Adder and a contingent of sylphs surrounded Castrum Oriens, thus completely severing Castrum Meridianium's primary lines of supply. For the third phase of Operation Archon, the Order of the Twin Adder blockaded the railway connecting Sentry and Meridianium, preventing the timely arrival of reinforcements from Mordona. The Immortal Flames then marched against the stronghold with all their strength, though in truth, this was but a feint. Through a carefully coordinated series of attacks, the Eorzean alliance had succeeded in isolating Castrum Meridianium. However, they could not lay siege to the fortress indefinitely, for Imperial reinforcements would surely come from far and wide to its defense. In particular, the Garlean forces stationed in Alameo could easily be dispatched to Castrum Meridianum by airship, rendering the Alliance's efforts for naught. Therefore, they would need strike while the iron was hot. While the garrison's eyes were drawn outwards by General Rawan's assault, the selfsame adventurer who slew Ritin Sas Arvina once more took charge of an elite adventurer unit. They stole past the defensives of Castrum Meridianum and attempted to deactivate the Magitech field which protected the Praetorium, the fortress within a fortress wherein the Ultima weapon was housed. Yet again, the adventurer and his allies emerged triumphant, successfully disabling the Magitech field generator as well as defeating Livius Sus Junius into the bargain. Oof, that's phrasing. The tribunist who had led the brutal raid on the Waking Sands. At last, the path to the Praetorium was open, and so it was that Cid non Garlon delivered the adventurer and his comrades to the stage of the final confrontation with Gaius von Baelsar and the Ultima weapon. A relic of the Third Astral Era, the Ultima weapon was a feat of Allegan technology, the same technology which saw the reach of the Allegan Empire extend to the four corners of Heidelin. After being employed to great effect on the southern continent of Mericidia, the mechanical juggernaut had been buried and lain undisturbed for 5,000 years. Upon its rediscovery, the 14th Legion of the Imperial Garlean army had refitted it to serve as a countermeasure against the ever-growing primal threat. However, it later came to light in a report delivered to the Eorzean Alliance by the Scions of the Seventh Dawn that, despite the best efforts of Nero Tolskeva, the Empire had failed to reactivate the Ultima weapon on its own. It was only after Asian intervention that they had managed to awaken the monstrosity, by harnessing the power of the Heart of Sabik, an ancient relic infused with vast quantities of aether. There, within the Praetorium, the Asian La Habrea revealed his true intent to enemy and ally both, to harness the life force of the primals and quicken this core, that he might unleash Ultima, a spell of unimaginable destructive power contained therein. In an instant, the Praetorium was not more than a smoking crater. Yet by the grace of Mother Heidelin's blessing, the adventurer was spared death, and as the fires raged all about, he laid low both Gaius von Baelsar and his Ultima weapon. Thus did the conquest of the Black Wolf end in smoke and ashes. The destruction wrought by Ultima was, according to eyewitness accounts, akin to a volcanic eruption. To this day, the precise nature and origins of the Heart of Sabik, the mysterious artifact La Habrea used to invoke the ancient magic, remain unknown. The dawning of the Seventh Astral Era. With the destruction of the Ultima weapon, Operation Archon was proclaimed a resounding success. Their hearts swelling with pride and relief, the weary allies came together in the shadow of the Keeper of the Lake, and there declared, to all and sundry, a definitive end, not only to their desperate struggle against von Baelsar's 14th Legion, but to the petty squabbles which had divided their nations for far too long. They were under no illusions. The realm was yet beset by countless problems, and the scars left by the calamity would linger for generations to come. Nevertheless, they believed that their triumph at Castrum Meridianum marked a turning point, the first steps towards a united Eorzea, which could stand against the might of Garlemald. And so Chief Admiral Merwib Blufswin, Flame General Rauban Alden, and Elder Seedseer Kani Senna raised their voices as one, and proclaimed that on that day, by the light of the crystal, the Seventh Astral Era had come, and the realm was at last truly reborn. And so we move to A Realm Awoken. At long last, Eorzea was poised to enter a new era of peace. Yet, where there is light, there will always be shadow. Seizing upon the destruction of the Ultima weapon, the beast tribes resumed their efforts to summon their primals, while remnants of the once defeated Garlean forces resurfaced with renewed ambitions. Threats old and new, known and forgotten, were on the horizon, and the future was anything but certain. The future of the Scions. Following the success of Operation Archon, the adventurer who had been instrumental in Gaius von Baelsar's defeat was renowned far and wide as the Warrior of Light. The eyes of the world were drawn to the Scions of the Seventh Dawn and their once covert headquarters in Vesper Bay. The halls of the Waking Sands were thronged with petitioners seeking to engage their services for personal gain, and for a time the organization debated whether or not to entertain their dubious proposals, that they might be empowered to do greater good. Ultimately, the Scions resolved to maintain their neutrality, and to that end they decided to move their headquarters beyond the borders of Ul'dah and the other great nations. To remain in Vesper Bay would leave them at the mercy of the Syndicate, or at the very least Lord Lolorito, the member who had practically funded the reconstruction of Vesper Bay himself. There were security considerations as well. The Imperial raid on the Waking Sands had not only been devastating for the Scions, but it had also endangered the civilians living and working nearby. With their presence now known to all, it was doubtless only a matter of time before a similar incident occurred. The Scions' new headquarters would be established in Revenant's Toll, an outpost in Mordona established largely under the auspices of the Adventurers Guild. Though somewhat undeveloped at the time, it lied firmly within neutral territory, and was also frequented by a veritable legion of adventurers who could serve as a potential recruit, or several. Furthermore, the guild was more than happy to have the Scions, provided they did their part to contribute to the development of the frontier settlement and help shore up its defenses to deter attacks from the nearby remnants of the Imperial army. A primal unlike any other. While the Scions were in the midst of relocating to Revenant's Toll, they learned that a primal, or an entity resembling one, had been detected in Gridania. Good King Mogglemog, the 12th of his name, had returned to the Twelveswood after a 5-year absence, having apparently been summoned by the Moggles Guard, a group of Moogles devoted to protecting their people by any means necessary. However, at first glance, this particular foe seemed fundamentally different from the primals of the Ixal and the Sylphs. Whereas Garuda and Ramu were worshipped as guardian deities, the Moogle king was a mythical figure who ruled in an age when Moogles served the gods in the heavens. When the gods grew discontent and started squabbling amongst themselves, good King Mogglemog the 12th lowered a rope to the world below to allow his people to descend to safety. Though they escaped, he was forced to remain in the heavenly realm thereafter. Having saved his people once, it was believed that he would come again in their time of need. At the behest of the Order of the Twin Adder, the Warrior of Light journeyed to the Twelveswood, and with the cooperation of the Moogles, he sought out and confronted the Moggles Guard and their liege lord in Thornmarch. Though hard-pressed, the adventurer won the day, leaving the loyal Moggles Guard to look on in horror as their beloved king of legend disintegrated into aether, leaving behind no corpse. His manner of death all but confirmed the Scions' worst fears. Like the primals of the beast tribes, good King Mogglemog the 12th had been called forth by means of a rite imparted to the Moggles Guard by the Ascians. Through the Maelstrom. Long dormant forces had begun to stir, their awakening a presage of night eternal. For the betterment of Eorzea, the Scions of the Seventh Dawn had re-established themselves beyond the reach of those who would sway them for personal gain. However, to stave off the encroaching darkness and pull the realm back from the brink of destruction, the Warrior of Light and his comrades would need plunge headlong into a political maelstrom. The Doman Dilemma. The Scions of the Seventh Dawn continued to receive all manner of petitions, even at their new headquarters, the Rising Stones, in the frontier lands of Mordona. Though some were of questionable merit, one in particular warranted their immediate attention. The Amagina and Sons mineral concern had recently discovered that they had been the target of a series of covert robberies, which were currently under investigation by the Brass Blades. Normally, mere theft would not be deserving of the Scions' attentions. However, significant quantities of crystals, and only crystals, had been stolen, suggesting that the thieves acted not out of self-interest, but in service to a primal. Given their proximity, the Amal-Jah were considered the most likely suspects. However, with the assistance of the Brass Blades of Horizon, the Scions eventually concluded that the thieves were not native to Thanalan at all. Meanwhile, in Vesper Bay, a small vessel bearing refugees from the far eastern land of Doma had unexpectedly arrived, their leader loudly proclaiming that she sought an audience with the ruler of Ul'dah. Urianger, who had remained in the port to look after the Waking Sands and pursue his independent studies of primals, at once contacted Menphilia, who bade the Warrior of Light and Alphino make contact with the Domans and their masked leader, Yukiri. The refugee leader explained to the Scions that following the death of the Garlean Emperor Solus Zoscalvus, the Domans had espied an opportunity to free themselves from the yoke of imperial oppression and took up arms against the Empire. In the end, however, their rebellion was crushed, and Doma was razed to the ground as an example to other provinces. Ugiri was thus forced to lead her people from Othard to Eorzea, where they hoped to find sanctuary. With Alphinaud's aid, Ugiri was granted an audience with the rulers of Ul'dah that she might plead her case. Alas, despite the best wishes of the Sultana, due to their ongoing struggles to care for the displaced victims of the calamity and the Alamecan refugees, the Domans were turned away from Ul'dah. Fortunately, they found a new home in Revenant's Toll, where they would work as frontier hands in exchange for food and shelter. The Lord of the World. After helping the Domans to broker an agreement with the Adventurers Guild of Revenant's Toll, the Scions turned their attention to a developing situation in Vilbrand. Y'shtola had returned from her investigation there, having confirmed beyond a shadow of a doubt that the Serpent Reavers were behind the crystal thefts in Thanalan. All evidence suggested that the Sahagin were preparing to summon Leviathan once more, and so it was that Admiral Merlwyb petitioned the Scion's aid in preventing the Primal's reawakening. With the support of the Maelstrom, the Warrior of Light and his comrades managed to force their way inside the Sapsa spawning grounds, where the Sahagin were conducting the summoning ritual. Alas, despite their best efforts, the Beastmen were successful, and Leviathan was come once more. The Primal soon bent his course for the open sea, and there effortlessly dispatched a diversionary squadron of the Crimson Fleet, forcing Admiral Merlwyb and the others to reassess their available options. The Allies soon struck upon a most unorthodox solution, courtesy of Storm Marshal Einzar. To harness the power of corrupted crystals borne upon an improvised twin vessel to rob Leviathan of his command over the element of water. Being the best, and only, plan available, all involved swiftly agreed to support the endeavor, and Naldik and Vimels quickly set to work on the vessel's construction. Once preparations were complete, the flagship of the Crimson Fleet, the Triumph, towed the war leader in the sea, along with the Warrior of Light, to confront the fell Primal. And so it was that, following a titanic struggle on the high seas, he succeeded in vanquishing Leviathan, sparing Limsa Lominsa untold devastation and death. Well then, that was, I want to say, a very active retelling of what happened. Little bits of it, again, that I didn't necessarily remember from playing through, but definitely all that I remember, all the nostalgia of those moments is very intact in this retelling, so I definitely appreciate that. And that is about long enough for me to go ahead and wrap up this section of reading. Next time, it looks like we'll be peeking into Defenders of Eorzea just before Dreams of Ice, so we're getting very close to Heaven's Warp. For now, though, we're going to go ahead and wrap up, so make sure that you like the video. Hope you enjoyed yourself, and I'll see you next time for the next reading stream. And for those that are here live, we're going to have some fun gaming times. Thank you. I'll see you soon.